Welcome to this third video where we've been learning about how to notate musical pitch. So far we've learned how to represent notes on the musical stave using the treble clef or the bass clef, and we've also learned about accidentals. Today we're going to be learning about ledger lines. Let's start off with some important notes. Any note on the stave represents a very specific pitch. So if we look at the slide at the moment, you'll see that in the treble clef, I have written a D that is on the fourth line. Every good boy deserves. Okay, so there's the D. But it's not just any D, it's a specific D in the range of pitches that we work with. If we look at the piano keyboard in that picture, you'll see that for the whole piano keyboard, there are 7 Ds. The D that is written in the treble clef on the fourth line is a very specific D. It's the D that I've put in yellow. I hope you can see the yellow on your screen. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th D from the bottom. It's that specific D. It's not any of the other Ds. It's that D. So musical notation gives us an exact pitch, exactly where it is on the keyboard. But perhaps what you will have noticed is that if we were to use both the treble clef and the bass clef together, we wouldn't be able to notate all of the notes on the piano that we've just seen because there wouldn't be enough space. There are, after all, only 5 lines and 4 spaces, 6 spaces if you count the space at the very bottom and at the very top. That doesn't give us very many notes. So how do we extend the stave so that we can show those notes specifically? We can do this using something called ledger lines. And the ledger lines simply extend the stave either lower or higher. If you look at the screen now, you'll see that I've used the bass clef. And if we remember the rhyme for the bass clef, good boys deserve food always. So the lowest line is a G. So the note just below that G is an F. You'll see I've labeled it F. If we want to go further down, we can have an E. It looks like a middle C. You'll see it looks like a middle C. It's just got a little line through the middle of it. Then if we want a D, we still write the little line, but now the note comes underneath that line. And if we want a C, 2 lines, and the C comes in the middle of the second one. You can keep on going down and down and down like that simply by extending the stave with those little lines. Those little lines are called ledger lines. They are simply an extension of the stave. But there's some important rules about using them. Notice, for example, that ledger lines do not extend beyond individual notes. So in other words, the ledger lines do not connect to each other to form one long additional stave line. Look at the example on the slide. You'll see that the 3 notes, the line extends all the way across all 3 notes. That's not what we want. The ledger lines are only for one individual note. If we go back to the slide before, you'll see that each note, the line is quite a small line and it only affects the note for which it is intended. For example, E, the line goes just a little way beyond the note on either side. It doesn't attach to the D and it doesn't attach to the C. That's a very, very important principle in writing ledger lines. You don't extend the whole line to create a new stave. You just keep them very close to the note that you are working with. The second rule, which is equally important, is that when you are working with a note that has gone below or above the stave using ledger lines, and it's technically in a space, you don't have to write an extra ledger line underneath it. So look at the screen now. You'll see that that note is a D. There should be a ledger line just above it, but we don't need the one underneath. So if we go back to the previous slide, you'll see that the D just has the line above it, but not an additional line underneath it. You don't need to make it look as though it's in between two lines. Okay, that's very important. It is the same as if you're going up above the stave, the same would apply. If you've got a ledger line and a note above the ledger line, it doesn't need an additional line above it so that it looks like it's between two lines. It just needs the line below it if it's above the stave, or above it when it's below the stave. That's a very important principle. So these ones, if you're looking at the screen now, are correctly written. In the next one, you'll see there's the line that extends all the way through them. That is incorrect. They need to be separated. And in this one, there is an additional line which is not needed. You do not need that extra line, just the one above it. And that ends this video.